Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about the Docker ecosystem as a whole, because when you understand kind of like the different moving pieces and how they connect and how they layer on top of each other, your life gets much, much easier. Because some people, they kind of see all the different moving pieces and they're like, oh no, I have to learn this thing, and I have to go and I have to learn this other completely different thing. And I'm here to tell you it's okay. It's not like that. Everything builds upon itself. Everything is a layer on top of the previous layer. So if when you want to break it down like this, what you say is that you have your Docker layer. Your Docker is, so your Docker container is a way of taking a single package or single application or a single piece of software and putting that into a container. And if you've never heard the word, container kind of used in this context, it's pretty much, it's your computer. It's like if I was going to just, if I wanted to collaborate with somebody on the other side of the world and I wanted to take my laptop, fold it up, put it in like the mailbox and and send it off to them so that they could have my exact same setup. Okay, well you can do that with Docker, and that's pretty much the point of it, and then also for scaling and deploying and things, but on a very low level, that is it. You're taking your software and you're packaging it up. I always like to think of Docker as being like a really, really awesome package manager. Like it is the world's best package manager as far as I'm concerned. So then once you have that, you're like, okay, well I have my single application, that's great, but that's not the world that I live in. I need for my application to talk to databases, to talk to message queues, to talk to other applications, to be scaled, to be deployed, to be all these things. And that's okay because, the ecosystem as a whole has you covered there. So then once we get to the point where it's okay, I have multiple containers, I need to scale them up and I need for them to talk to each other. So first I just need for them to talk to each other. That's when we have Docker Compose. Docker Compose is a way of creating a template file that has many, many instances of Docker run. So I can have a Docker Compose that has a database, that has a Python application, that has a message queue, that has some other manner of REST API, that has anything I want in there. Each one of those is a separate service, and each one of those separate services it's a way of creating a template for Docker run. And later on, we're going to go really into the syntax and really exactly what that means and exactly the way that they're mapped, and it's going to be very clear and you're really going to see it. So then once we finished up with Docker Compose, the next level to that is to say, okay, all that is great, but what I really want to do is I want to deploy these to remote servers places, and then I want to scale them, and I want for them to just generally be awesome. Maybe I need, I have my REST API, and I need to have a load balancer in front of that because I have so many people accessing this REST API that I need to have multiple instances of it so that it's more fault tolerant, so that more people can access it, so that it's spread across more computational resources, whatever. That is the next layer. And that is done in two kind of adjacent ways. So, so in the olden days, no, I'm just kidding. Okay, so there's Docker Swarm, which is kind of the original way of doing this, and it's still very much used. I still use it quite a bit. And then there is Kubernetes, which is really gaining speed and seems to be, the community's more accepted way of doing this. The difference between these things is not a whole lot. Kubernetes gives you a lot more power and a lot more control, and with that comes, as usual, it comes a steeper learning curve. Docker Swarm is a little bit simpler on the other hand, and once you know Docker Compose, to put that together with Docker Swarm is a very, very easy thing, and you can just do that almost automatically. So it really depends on exactly your use case, which one you're going to want to go with. You're almost never going to want to go with both. I don't know why you would do that. Of course, then I'm sure the comments flood in that well, what about this? What about this? And that's fine. I'm sure there is a reason to do that. But generally, they're going to be kind of adjacent technologies. You're going to choose one or the other, but they both fit into that same kind of place in the Docker ecosystem, which is I have this application, I want to deploy it, maybe I want to scale it to multiple servers, maybe I want to have one service that sits on one server and another service that sits on another server. I need to allocate some amount of memory of CPUs, I need to have this many instances running at a certain time, so on and so forth, just like that. And then of course, once you have that, the whole idea is to develop, and you can develop anywhere. Like I most often just develop from my laptop, And if it's too big for a laptop, then, I'll develop from a remote server someplace. And then deploy anywhere. You can deploy to a remote server in your own infrastructure. You can deploy to Amazon. You can deploy to Google Cloud, to the Microsoft Cloud. The idea is this gives you like this layer of packaging and of abstraction that then once you have that, you can deploy it pretty much anywhere. And just as a side note, like Swarm and Kubernetes and deploying and Docker in general is one of those technologies that, everybody has gotten in on. And then once you, in general, like I found once I see a technology that everybody is in on, Microsoft and Google and Facebook and, like all like kind of like these big names in technology, if everybody's starting to pay attention and starting to add kind of their own spin to things, that's a really good thing to follow. Because, somebody else has done so much of the work for you. You have these really big groups with these really brilliant people who are working night and day on it and just getting you really, really awesome stuff. Yeah, that's something to pay attention to. So that's it for this lesson. We are going to get really, in the following lessons, we're going to start to really get into the exact syntax, how you create Docker images, how you run them, how you build them, how you, put them together, how you compose them into multiple services, and then how you scale and deploy them. So that's it. I'll see you in the next lesson. Thanks.